Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to tell you my takeaways after the Steelers have released both wide receiver Denzel Mims and safety Trenton Thompson, what moves I think could be on the way. Then also we'll talk about whether or not and what kind of role Justin Fields played in his failure there with the Chicago Bears. There is a very prominent sports analyst that thinks he has most of the blame in Chicago. Then also, an insider says that the Steelers are this Steeler is going to be out the door in 2025. He is a starting player, so make sure you guys stick around to the end of today's show to see who that is. But before we get into today's Steelers news and rumors coverage, get us started right now by grading the Steelers offseason so far. Give Omar Khan a grade, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know how you guys have liked the Steelers offseason to this point. So recent roster cuts here for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 24 hours or so. Denzel Mims, the wide receiver, and Trenton Thompson, the safety, who had to come in and kind of in relief of, DeMonte KZ and Minka and all these guys that got hurt at the safety position last year. Now, we'll go about these one at a time here. Let's start with Mims. Okay, first takeaway is that Mims wasn't really cutting it to earn a spot in camp this year. I mean, obviously, he was a former second-round pick. He's a bigger body. Steelers were kind of hoping that he'd be able to develop under their building. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that was the case. Then also, it looks like Pittsburgh is making space in their wide receiver room for another pass catcher here. Now, I don't know exactly who that pass catcher is going to be, but I have a feeling it's either going to be a trade for Brandon Aiyuk, who currently plays for the San Francisco 49ers, or it's going to be for Michael Thomas, who was with the Saints last year. He was currently an NFL free agent. So this is what Ray Filipaldo had to say about what the Steelers' strategy is when it comes to locking down Brandon Aiyuk in a trade. I think the Steelers are interested, but I think they're interested at their price. And I think what Omar Khan is going to do is he's going to wait until it gets really uncomfortable for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And if you've noticed, Aiyuk is kind of starting to make it uncomfortable for the 49ers. So I think deadlines always spur these deals, right? As the season gets closer, I think the 49ers will have a little bit more urgency in moving Aiyuk. So listen, man, it's not impossible that the Steelers end up landing Aiyuk at this point, especially if he straight up demands a trade. But I still think that the most likely scenario here is that the 49ers find a way to keep Brandon Aiyuk for at least another season. Then the Steelers end up getting Michael Thomas, who is currently, in my opinion, the best fit on the free agency market that still doesn't have a team for the 2024 season. That is where I am at with this subject right now, guys. But let me know what you guys are thinking right now. Who's going to get added to the Steelers wide receiver room? Will it be Brandon Aiyuk, type BA? Will it be Michael Thomas, type MT? Or do you think it's going to be somebody else? Or do you think it's going to be nobody? Let me know your guys' thought down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Just like the Mims one here, with Thompson, I have a couple of thoughts why the Steelers ended up releasing him. Number one, Thompson just hasn't looked great coming off of that injury that ended his 2023 season. I hate to see him go because he did come in and he was helpful to the Steelers defense last year, and I thought he'd be a pretty darn good backup safety for this team. But however, the silver lining here is that Ryan Watts is looking good enough in OTAs to be that backup strong safety moving forward, all right? So Trenton Thompson, you can take him off the depth chart right now. It's going to be Ryan Watts now slotting in behind Deshaun Elliott as the backup strong safety, and Thompson just really wasn't looking the part of an NFL safety, unfortunately, because he is coming off of that injury. He didn't have much time to rehab it, and he just wasn't looking all that great in OTAs, and that's probably the main reason why he was let go. But it also probably points to Ryan Watts out of Texas, a day 3 pick, the Coops guy over here, is looking pretty darn good in OTAs, at least good enough to let Thompson go. Now let's shift over to Justin Fields here, where Emmanuel Acho from Fox Sports says that Justin Fields has only himself to blame for his failure with the Chicago Bears and why, to this point in his career, he is a bust. This is what he had to say on his program on FS1 yesterday. The reason that Fields had so much turnover is in large part his fault. If you succeed, there's a lot more stability where you are because you're succeeding. A lack of talent targets instability. I'm not blaming it all on him. I do believe that he went to a bad situation in Chicago. And listen, guys, I really do hate to say it, but Acho does have a little bit of a point here, okay? Because Justin Fields He did have to play at least some part in his demise there with the Chicago Bears. Now, obviously, Bears situation was not good. Did not have a good offensive line. The offensive coordinators and the play callers were inept his entire time there in Chicago. But, there's a couple stats here that I think point to Justin Fields not showing that he's got the mental processing or the accuracy that you look for in a starting franchise caliber quarterback in the NFL. You look at the time to throw, it was 3.23 last year. 3.23 seconds was his average. That was 45th out of 45 quarterbacks, and the next lowest was at 3.07. So Justin Fields by far had the most time to throw of any quarterback in football, and that includes many of the backups that had to come in relief of their starting quarterbacks last season. So this is somebody that doesn't really get the ball out of his hands quickly. He doesn't read defenses particularly well. And Coop, if we can go back to that weigh-in two there for that other statistic, it's really the accuracy. It's the on-target percentage, the 71.8, which is 31st in the NFL. Remember, there's only 32 teams, all right? So this is somebody in his third year in the league where he's still 31st in the league in total accuracy numbers in terms of being on target with his passes. And I think that you can probably attribute that, guys, to kind of his wonky upper body throwing mechanics. He gets very elbowy with his throwing mechanics where he puts his elbow super high up. You don't really see a whole lot of great passers do that in today's NFL. And, he has struggled at Steelers OTAs to this point. All right, we've heard more than enough Steelers insiders that have been on the ground in Pittsburgh watching him at OTAs this year to tell you that this guy's struggling getting through his progressions. He's struggling adapting to a new offense. He's struggling with ball placement, particularly down the field at this point in his Steelers career. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very glad that Justin Fields is here. Okay, I think that he's a very good and very explosive backup option. I think Arthur Smith should have a dedicated package for Justin Fields to come in and be a very dangerous offensive weapon, but he's Russell Wilson's backup, right? That is going to be his role at least to start the season, and he's not going to get a chance to play unless A, Russell Wilson gets hurt, or B, Russell Wilson is struggling and the team is not winning games with him in the first half of the season. So I do think that it's good that Justin Fields is here, especially at the price that Omar Khan was able to get him at, but I see him more as a backup option and a high upside plan B option, not somebody that is a legit starting capable player heading into this season. But make sure you guys like the video here if you love Pittsburgh's quarterback room, because I love this dynamic here. You've got a guy in Russell Wilson who I think is a great fit for this offense. He's looked fantastic in OTAs. Then you get a guy in Justin Fields where if Russ goes down or if he's struggling, he's super talented. He's the best rushing quarterback in football, and he's a very explosive player where the season's not completely lost if you have to go to Justin Fields. So if you love this quarterback room, type that or click that thumbs up icon right now for me before we get to our next segment. Our final segment today, we're going to be talking about Mark Kaboly from The Athletic, who says that the Steelers are likely going to let starting right guard James Daniels leave next offseason when his contract expires, is what Kaboly had to say about Daniels. Daniels said that the Steelers have told him that they won't extend him as he enters the final year of his contract. It's a business decision, and I get it, but that business doesn't make sense unless fourth-round rookie Mason McCormick turns into a starter by this time next year. So we take a look at the career Pro Football Focus grades for Daniels. His first 2 years in Pittsburgh have been kind of lower compared to, his career averages. That 71.8 season that he had in 2021 in his Pro Football Focus grade was pretty darn good there in Chicago. But last year had the lowest of his career with a 61.1. Got better as the season went on, so that's something that I definitely like. But I think that it makes sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers to let him go after this season. You look at the guard market in the NFL right now, guys. Guys like Robert Hunt are making like $20 million per season to be offensive guards. I'm not willing to pay James Daniels that kind of money, especially with the way that Mason McCormick is looking in the early days of his NFL career. You can make an argument that McCormick looks like the best rookie offensive lineman the Steelers drafted this year, over their first-round pick, Troy Fautanu, and over center, Zach Frazier. That is how good Mason McCormick is looking right now, and he's not even slated to be a starter this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think if you have an up-and-coming player like McCormick that you have full confidence can replace James Daniels as your starting right guard next year, it's a cheap alternative there than paying James Daniels $20 million to stay put here in Pittsburgh at a low-value position. So I think McCormick is the future at that position. I love James Daniels. I love that he's on this team for this year, but it's probably going to be his last year here in Pittsburgh. Now let me know down there in the comments section, should Pittsburgh bring back James Daniels in 2025? Let me know down there in the comments section how you feel about bringing back James Daniels. That'll be it for this news and rumors segment here on Steelers Talk. Type real one in the comments if you made it to the end of today's show. Not everybody makes it to the end of the show. Lots of people click away. I want to know the real ones that made it to the end of today's show. So make sure you type real one to identify yourselves down there in the comments.